Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. A real pleasure tonight to introduce you to a gentleman that I think has been more vocal than almost anyone else in regards to what's been happening with these government lockdowns. And I think it's been, and if you've been watching any of my shows, I've been quite vocal on this. I think the government has made some big mistakes and they're hurting small and medium-sized businesses. And I saw a friend of mine, who I'm going to introduce you in a second, wave in front of his establishment in a couple of different places a white flag, surrendering. And that's got to be indicative of how he feels. So I want to introduce you to Louie Manzo, who runs Cabin, Barber Shop, and Gentleman's Supply. How are you?
Thanks, Brian. I'm really well. Happy to be here.
The white flag, what's it all about?
Well, the white flag, although, symbolizes a surrender, and you mentioned that, in fact, it was meant to be a rallying call for small business to finally let our leadership know that, hey, listen, we give up. Like, we've been waiting, and we've opened, and we've closed, we've listened to directions that really make no sense. And so at this point in time, I thought it was important that we have a symbolic representation of the fact that we just don't know where to turn anymore. And, that might look and sound like a surrender, but what I really think it is a chance for everybody to recognize we're at the end of the rope if we haven't already. I
got to imagine. So let's describe to people a little bit, what your business is. So you're a barber shop.
Yes.
But it's more than a barbershop. It's a barbershop that's got, a whole sort of vibe about it. Cabin down in Port Credit, and you're in Union Station and somewhere else, I understand.
As well as the waterfront, Queens Quay
Queens
Terminal.
Quay. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, right. Yes. I was at your opening there. It was a wonderful party. I remember now.
Yeah, thanks very much.
And you've been closed down since what? Before Christmas?
We effectively cut our last hair appointment on November 23rd. And have been closed down since. Of course, that was going into what was going to be a 28-day lockdown, and that got extended. And then we had a glimmer of hope with the idea that we'd be coming back, and of course, that got canceled. Taken away, stripped of it. Of course, like in that business, and you're right, it's more than a barber shop. It really is. It's a retail environment. It's a barber shop. It's a community hub in a lot of respects. So we've got the support and an ongoing kind of concern for how we're operating and when we're operating, and our communities are rallying behind us, and they're really as confused as we are on what's next. But it's been a long time since we've had the shop open. Of course, we're allowed to open for 25% capacity because we sell product, but really that's not the thrust of our business.
Right.
Our business is straight blade razor shaves, fades, tapers, haircuts, beards, and the like. So
we got to go through that. So let's take a second off topic here. What's a fade?
A fade. Well, it's a term for a haircut that gradually goes from what would be a 0 up into a 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to the clipper length. And there's a number of different styles of fades, but fades has become a term for that style of haircut for in and around the last 10, 15 years.
And sorry, you said fade blade?
What was and a straight blade razor shave.
Okay,
that's really our specialty.
Okay, the straight blade razor, and then what else?
So our barbers have been called beard masters. Mm-hmm. So beards, have.
Now your beard's looking very, reasonable.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of product.
Yourself,
there's a lot of product. I mean, that's the trouble. If you do too much DIY, you can find yourself in big trouble. And when you make it back to the barber shop or the chairs for your barber, they'll know that you've had your hand at your own face.
There's a couple of businesses that I think have been, more unfairly dealt with than others, and I think beauty salons, barber shops are one, restaurants are another, and I think that athletic facilities, gyms and studios and dance studios and things like that. You think about all the people that are going to grocery stores, to regional malls that have now been opened up, albeit at reduced capacity, but they look like they're packed. I drove by a couple of malls this weekend, and the parking lots were close to capacity. So there's lots of people in there. Why do you think that your industry and a few others, not just you, but your industry has been targeted?
Well, Quite frankly, it's difficult for us to understand why. We've been told a number of times that it's impossible to police small business, and with over 400,000 small businesses in Peel, being able to secure those in a way that makes bylaw happy and people feel protected and safe was the story that we got. The other story that we got was that close proximity within an environment would have transmission at a higher rate. That's never been the case.
I went to a dentist who had a mask on. I went to a doctor who had a mask on. Can't a barber have a mask on?
It's our argument. It's exactly why we think we should be open. We should be open for a number of reasons. First of all, a licensed barber, a personal services professional, has trained, has been certified in infection control, in sanitization, in the disposal of their equipment. I mean, it's a curriculum. It's a piece where I'd feel much more comfortable about somebody that would have had to have been trained professionally, been certified, than a grocery clerk, or to the point where somebody, and you're talking about the malls and the stores being packed. Just imagine the grocery store and you've picked up the orange that's had somebody else manhandle the orange 20 times beforehand. The argument for having a small business like a professional service or personal services like ours closed doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, and the argument that they can't police you, they're not policing the supermarkets or the big box retailers.
No, it's apparent that we're a scapegoat for the lockdown, and I don't want to. I'm not into the discussion of politics in the sense of this political team says this versus this political team. It's really a question of leadership, and now our government have had 3 opportunities to address this effectively, aggressively, to not only flatten the curve but eradicate the disease when, if impossible, and they haven't performed at that level.
It hasn't worked before, so why is this time going to be any different?
Right, and now I think the challenge is that more people recognize that they just layer another piece of confusion into the story. And when you've confused your community and your citizens and Ontarians, we begin to lose faith, and then we stop following the rules. And I'm not suggesting that's what we should be doing. However, I think when everybody's got to the same point of scratching their head and trying to figure out, what did that press conference mean to me? Why are we allowing malls to stay open? Why are personal services closed down? We've had the comment many times that our customers have never felt more safe in an environment as they have in our barber shops.
Yeah.
I mean, temperature checks at the door, hand sanitization, masks, PPE gear for our staff, full wash down of the station after every single appointment, enough time in between so that we controlled capacity.
Well, if you start becoming a source of infection, you're going to get a bad rep, and you're going to hurt yourself, and you're going to be mindful of that.
You're going to be mindful of that, and that's something that we would try to avoid at all costs.
So it's not your sector, but I go to a store down in Port Credit that you probably know, a great meat store that I love, and it's a small little store. There's never more than like 3 people in it, and number one, it's got great meat, but then number 2, there's never more than 3 or 4 people in it, and I feel completely safe. And so one of my arguments has been by forcing everyone into the big grocery stores and the big box stores, we're actually taking all the same number of people that have still got to shop and concentrating them in a smaller number of places. And by definition, it's going to be more crowded. And if you allowed it to dissipate out and go to your barber shop and go to other places, smaller establishments, smaller retail stores, maybe at 25% or 50% or something like that capacity, we'd actually spread people out more. But instead, we're concentrating them.
This is where the challenge is that, I'm an average guy. I'm a merchant. I own a couple of stores. I look at things logically, but when you and I can have a discussion, me and my business owners in my community can have a discussion and recognize the inequality of the conversation and where the blame is really being pointed or where the prevention is being pointed, then you recognize that if it doesn't make sense to us, how is it possible that our leaders are making sense of it? And then trying to expect us to come back with, I get it, and I'm going to adhere to it, because quite frankly, that's all we've been doing is adhering to it. And I think right now we're at that breaking point where people are just simply tired, fed up, and frustrated with the fact that, from this side of the fence, from a business side of the fence, our teams can't earn revenue. They're on employment insurance. It's a fraction of what they made, and it's not sustainable. There's no opportunity for them to make any more money. What's really happening, this is the bigger problem, is that the economy is being driven, no question, but it's the underground economy.
Yep.
I mean, that's where we have a real challenge, where people are, now forced to take money where they can, garage haircuts, backyard haircuts, basement haircuts.
Really?
With no protocols.
That can't be sanitary.
It's not. It's not. It's a means to an end, and that's the challenge, is that they've now forced the hand of the average guy that was, gainfully employed, paying taxes, following protocols. That's now a challenge for those guys. They're coming to the end of their rope where they need financial independence. They need to get back to work.
We're chatting tonight with Louie Manzo of Cabin, Barber Shop and Gentleman's Supply, a facility down in Port Credit that I love going to, and he's got another one in Queens Quay and another one in Union Station. It's been tough on small and medium-sized businesses. We're going to take a break and come back more with Louie and chat a little bit more about what we can do about this and what government should be doing rather than what they currently are. Stay with us.
Assalamu alaikum. We are in the month of Ramadan, and I'm looking forward to celebrating this blessed time with you. Over the years, I've personally seen the strength of unity that this month brings to the Canadian Muslim community. This is an opportunity to learn and to join you in this holy month of purification and celebration. Ramadan Mubarak.
एक छोटी सी तकरीब में शिरकत भी आपके प्यारों को कोविड-19 की जानलेवा बीमारी का शिकार बना सकती है। जब तक सबको वैक्सीन नहीं लग जाती, अपने घरों में रहें और जिंदगियां बचाएं।
Here's to the people, pioneers searching for better, ambitious fortune seekers in strange new places. They're the inspiration behind Zoom, the fast and secure money transfer app from PayPal.
Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. We're chatting tonight about the impact of COVID-19 lockdowns on small and medium-sized businesses. My guest is Louie Manzo, who is a fascinating guy. He runs a chain of barbershop, Gentleman's Barbershop and Gentleman's Supply facilities. One is down in Port Credit on Lakeshore, another one's in Queens Quay, and another one's in Union Station. And Louie, you've been able to create a real sort of community vibe out of your facilities. You've been kind enough to invite me to a couple of your parties, and you get the campfire and the marshmallows and the s'mores and a band and people in the community have really come out and enjoyed your facility. And I think that's one of the other things about this story is that the big grocery stores, I don't think, do that, right? And the big box stores don't do that. It's small and medium-sized businesses that number one, create a business, but then number two, employ a whole bunch of people, and number three, contribute to our community. They create our community, and we're destroying our main streets. Like I drive down Lakeshore Boulevard, and there are so many stores, restaurants that are shuttered up for lease signs that are out. I went and chatted with a restaurateur that you may know down the street from you. He was saying he's losing $10,000 a week.
Easy.
And he's saying, Brian, count it up. I'm going to have a couple $100,000 in debt that I wasn't planning on. And for me as a small businessman, to have a couple $100,000 in debt, more than I otherwise would have had, is unsustainable.
Yeah, well, first of all, back to the fiber of the community, I think small business is the culture of the community, and it allows people to interact and engage and connect in a way that large retailers, large box stores, and franchises just don't. I'm not suggesting that they don't do a good job in getting product in the hands of their communities. What I'm suggesting is that when you're local and you're small and you're independent, you rely on that dialogue and that connection with your community. And quite frankly, the events that Cabin hosts, I feel honored and privileged to be able to do that. I think it's almost my obligation in a way to be able to say thank you. I appreciate where we are. I appreciate your patronage. And I want to continue having this point of contact in the environments that I create so that, you have a fond memory. She has a fond memory. I mean, one of the only places, male type environments that has ladies' nights exclusively for them to be able to connect and be part of our community. And, I think that that's something that's very special. And sadly, I see what you're talking about. There's paper on the windows. There's small shops that can't afford to continue, that are going to be very challenged even after opening. That's where I think we've got something to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm worried now. I'm worried for a number of the retailers, the small shops, the restaurants, the gyms, the tattoo shops, anybody really that's, been told that we can't open and perform safely. I'm worried about their ability to be able to ride this. That's the challenge for us all, not knowing how much more we can tolerate. But when you hear about mounting bills and you hear about more debt, and yes, there's a relief program that allows you to take a loan out, that loan is going to come due. And at some point, I'm hopeful that when business returns, that we will get back to profitability, but I don't see it in the same time frame that, when we first started our 28-day lockdown, we'd be able to manage.
Yeah. So, you think about this increased debt. If government took away your business because it was going to close it down for a G7 protest, they would have to pay you for it. If they were going to take away your business because they were going to put through a road, they would have to go through expropriation, and they have to pay you fair value for your business. Here they're closing it down effectively because they didn't have enough healthcare capacity, right? Because they're trying to flatten the curve. And it's not our fault, it's not their fault, but the reality is it's government's job to have the infrastructure there, and they're closing us down to supposedly flatten the curve. They are expropriating your business.
Without question.
Shouldn't they have to compensate you for that expropriation?
I think that's a fair argument, and I've heard it recently too, where, my point has always been just make us whole. I'm grateful for the relief programs. Trust me, we would have no chance to be around if it wasn't for relief. However, it's not enough. It's going to at some point expire, and at that time, I think if we haven't been made whole, it's going to be very likely that more businesses are going to be gone.
So one of the things that they can do for restaurants, which they did last summer, and I think they're going to do it again this year, and I've been arguing they should continue it, is give them patio space. Because effectively you give someone patio space in a parking spot on the street that is not theirs, that they don't have to pay rent on. It's free capacity. And supposedly the chance of catching COVID-19 outside is almost nil. And so therefore it's public health friendly, effectively, capacity. And this restaurateur that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago was making good money on his patio, really good money on his patio. But for him to pay it back for his losses, he'd have to have that patio for 5 or 7 years to pay back his losses from the last year.
Right.
So, 1 year is good, but you got to have that been made available to him for a longer period of time to make him good. But in your business, how could they make it good for you?
I mean, I heard the conversation around if you have the capacity and the ability to cut your hair outside or cut customer hair outside, then you should look at that. Maybe that's something we would do, is what I heard. It just doesn't fly. I mean, especially given the amount of effort that goes into ensuring that we have safe, clean environments. Haircutting outside is not something that I think anybody logically would entertain. It's novel. It's maybe a Band-Aid, but certainly is weather dependent, just like the patio. It's space and location dependent. So if you happen to be inside an environment and you're a barber shop or a salon, you don't have the ability to go outside and commandeer an area in a parking lot. It's just not practical. And then to set up that expense, it's another cost that's nobody's really laying out cash for you to do that. And so in saying that, I don't know what they're going to be able to do other than let us operate safely, do a capacity maximum based on your square footage, and then have people visit us to ensure that we're making sure our
But again,
protocols are
that's
safe.
unquestionably, I think that's what they should be doing. I think they should be opening you up and doing it, albeit in a reduced capacity, and ensuring that you have public health measures, masks and physical distancing in place. I think that's a for sure. But they got to compensate you for what you've lost,
I don't
and
disagree.
frankly, they got to compensate you for that reduced capacity. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to explore how to do it. You know, if your income has gone down, I presume it's got to have, and so therefore you're going to pay less income taxes. Your sales have gone down, and so therefore you're going to pay less HST taxes. Shouldn't you be paying less property taxes, and/or if you're paying rent, your landlord paying less property taxes, so your rent go down? Because your properties are not of the same value today.
Right.
If you can't open for business, they
Right.
just by definition can't be. So you know our municipal tax system should be compensating us through reduced property taxes, either directly if we own the land or via lower rent rolls if we're rentals. No, like it don't make sense.
I completely. Well, I look at the logic of it. Of course, that makes sense. I don't think that we're in a position where they would understand how to be able to do that in an effective and efficient manner. And I think that's the challenge.
Value the properties for this 1 year at a lower amount because they've gone down.
I love what you're thinking.
You've been closed for
Yes.
10 months.
I mean, we're fortunate in that our in the buildings, we don't own them. The landlords have completely understood the position we're in and recognize that we're of value to their environment. So they've worked with us. We negotiated early and we're able to.
But then the landlords shouldn't be suffering too. The landlords that got mortgage payments. Property taxes should go down.
I agree.
Income taxes will go down naturally. Sales taxes for you have disappeared. Payroll taxes, regrettably, have disappeared because you're not paying your. So some of the tax system does adjust, but property taxes don't. And those things that don't adjust should adjust. And then I think you should be compensated for your business. And I think that giving patio space, parking space, to sidewalk space to restaurants, and you could have a sidewalk sale. What are the rules in regards to sidewalk sales for you? And do they make money?
I mean, we did a sidewalk sale when we came out of the first lockdown as a way to be able to say, hey, listen, we're open. We're going to be open shortly. And, it was an attraction more than anything. And it really just had people come by to support. They hadn't been able to purchase for a while. So they came by, the community rallied behind us, came by to be able to say, we're here to support you, and they work. Of course, weather dependent, you'd have to set up some structure to be able to protect yourselves, but it's an answer. I mean, right now we have 25% capacity allowed in the store, so we could sell product. We can't do a haircut.
Well, Louie, I hate to tell you, I loved your social media posts. I hated the reason why, but I loved that they were very humorous with your white flag behind the cash counter and behind the store and in other places. You captured my attention, and I'm sure you captured lots of other people's attention. And so congratulations for that, and keep it up. I think that small and medium-sized businesses have been hurt. And I've got to tell you all, I think this is going to be one of the reasons why governments lose people's support. I think that the impact on our small and medium-sized businesses, our restaurateurs, guys like Louie that are the backbone to our communities, have been damaged, and they don't deserve to, because none of the statistics I've been shown have shown that the infections are happening there. The infections are happening, what was it, 1,000 infections in a Amazon warehouse in the north end of the city, and they didn't close that down. Why? Because everyone's ordering from Amazon, and it's a big U.S. company. We can't for sure close them down, but that's where the infections are coming from. They're not coming from the cabin, and they're not coming from the restaurants in Port Credit. I think it's a real shame, and I think what we've got to do is we've got to open them up, albeit with capacity limit, physical distancing, lots of hand sanitizers, and some masks in place. And then we've got to tell our elected representatives they got to compensate people like Louie, because they don't deserve to lose the money that they've lost. Anyway, that's the Brian Crombie Show for Canada One tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Louie, thank you for all the stuff that you do, not just this year and not just in regards to this white flag campaign, but for the community long term. I really appreciate your involvement in Mississauga. I appreciate it.
Brian, thanks for having me. I appreciate have a chance to have a voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.